Wait! I'm a what? Written by Artina Blackcharm. Chapter 14. Sometimes you just gotta fight your friends. Summary. The need to fight and brawl with your friends that may possibly end in property damage is a perfectly normal biological need for a healthy ghost. And if one were to ask a certified ghost healer, i.e. frostbite, they would prescribe you with a scheduled 3 a.m. brawl in the Wendy's parking lot. Red Robin started. I really hate Halloween. It wasn't as nostalgic to watch someone wearing the mask of his favorite character from an old kid show try to shake down one of the working girls, just trying to go home. Much less with how much the guy stunk, even underneath the relatively new costume. Nightwing swung an arm around him, pulling Tim closer. Why, it's pretty funny to dress up. Robin glared at him, while giving the guy to the cops who had shown up. Notably, they also winced at the smell. Because people like to fuck around with shit on Halloween. Think they're stronger or some shit. Red Hood cut in through the comms, no doubt, standing near one of the infamous gargoyles he liked to hang around. Language, Batman was promptly ignored. Maybe, Spoiler said in a sing-song voice. There are curses, with Gotham and all that. She laughed, when she caught up to Hood, who promptly tried to get away from what they could tell with all the cursing that followed. It's childish to believe in such theories, Robin said, and Evan could particularly feel the look he would have been giving them if he wasn't grounded to stay in the Batcave due to his latest injury along with Signal. Spoiler winced at the poke Hood got on her. Hey, I'm not the only one. Didn't you hear about Death's Lullaby? Oh, spooky. Nightwing wiggled his fingers. I thought some people were calling it the Underground Songbirds or Gotham's Call, Signal said, while Robin muttered that it sounded childish. Red Robin tried to avoid Nightwing's fingers, drawing closer and closer to him. He even went as far as to grapple to a nearby roof. Dude, we literally dress up at night and fight crimes for justice, he said, the last part being an eerie, accurate imitation of Batman. Father is not childish, he is noble. Hood laughed. Keep telling. Fuck, spoiler, I swear. Just keep telling yourself that, Schwarzenegger. He's a Spoiler, what did I just say? Fuck. I swear to God, you're even worse than So, Nightwing clapped. What did Justice League Dark say, anyway? There was no question that Bruce has asked. Silence was the answer. Spoiler crackling rang through the air, and even louder in the comms. I knew we were cursed! Father hasn't said anything. That's why! Nightwing leaned against Red Robin, who had taken a seat on the ledge of the roof they just landed on. Bibi, what do you think? Cursed or not? Black Bat gave one long click in the comms. Ha! Spoiler said. She agrees with me. Chatter. Oi, old man, when the hell were you gonna tell us Gotham was cursed? It wasn't relevant. Relevant my ass, you bastard. Right, so you guys didn't notice the shadows? Signal said, and promptly the comms went all quiet for a blissful second. The fuck you mean the Other than the eerie sound that had come from the underground, there had been some reports of golden eyes at night, watching, never blinking from the shadows. The only thing that made the news was another fear gas attack, but luckily it was folded, with little to no injuries among civilians. Though apparently there was possibly a weird side effect. Multiple civilians reported hearing a horse walking outside. The reporters grew more in numbers the closer they got to the rotten street. Then he had an itch under his skin. He couldn't stop running his tongue over sharpening teeth or twitching his fingers, energy thrumming inside, ready to come out in a fight. It had been so long since he got to properly brawl, to truly go all out until all that was left was the pleasant hum from a battle well fought. When he asked Fright Night, the spirit balked and joked at the suggestion, even sputtering as Gotham laughed at his reaction. Danny walked away disappointed. He was walking down the street when someone tried to sneak up on him. Turning around quickly, Danny grabbed them around the waist and holstered them up, quickly settling them on his shoulders. He didn't flinch at the way two small hands slapped his cheeks in shock, and in an attempt to stabilize themselves on his shoulders. He just smiled when Tak finally leaned his head over Danny's to look at him upside down and asked, "What's up with you?" Danny tapped Tak's leg that was hooked over his chest. "I'm in the mood for a good old fight. Like Patty and Aiden?" Danny laughed. "Something like that." Tak sighed. "No fair. When I get into a fight, all I do is get suspended. You throw nails at them. They should dodge. Tick does." Tick is an outlier, and there is no one else like her. Tak laughed. "True, but that means everyone just sucks at dodging. It isn't that hard. I mean, you do it just fine, too." He paused. "Never mind. You don't count." Danny gasped in fake hurt and slumped over despite Tak still being on his head. "You wound me." Tak just leaned back to compensate for it before Danny stood back up. "Liar, you're carrying me just fine, and I'm almost taller than you. You're extravagating." "I'm not. You're one short boss, seriously." "You're just a tall kid. I'm only 13. See, you're going through a growth spurt." Danny reasoned. "When will you get yours?" Tak shot back. "I think you're past, dude. Give or take 500 years? Tak let go of Danny's face and let himself fall against Danny's back while Danny kept a secure hold on his legs. "Sounds like Gotham's post office. Meh." Danny shrugged. "Keeps my knees safe." "Is that so?" another voice asked. Danny looked up to see a familiar face. "Valen!" "Chit," Valen simply replied, while looking him over in the usually cursory manner he did whenever they saw each other. Danny didn't comment on it, considering he was doing the same thing. "You know you got a little something on your back." "Not little," Tak yelled, while giving Valen the bird. Valen simply raised an eyebrow, or where one would have been, and huffed in amusement. It made a part of Danny buzz with contentment, seeing Valen look more at ease in his haunt. It was a vast difference from the anger he felt from Valen that night of the storm. Danny wanted Valen to feel welcomed, not just by him, but by everyone else, and the hunt itself. He was sure that they would be able to feel it too. Danny already saw glimpses of moments where Valen was in tune with Gotham and even with him. Suddenly Danny had an idea. "Say," he began slowly, smiling at Valen, who paused at his tone. "Wanna brawl?" A low growl filled the space between them, and excitement from Valen and Tak tickled Danny's nose. "Just name the place, shit." Danny's smile widened. He always liked a good fight, and one was long overdue. Valen couldn't help but be curious about Danny's strength. Ever since he learned that Danny was the one who carried him off the streets and up the stairs into the room he had confusingly woken up in, he had been wondering just how much power was in a body that short and skinny. As much as the chit was polite, Danny was a mystery, and Valen was more than happy to fight and get a glimpse of answers through it. It helped that he knew Danny didn't mean any harm by the offer. Excitement and a young playfulness were particularly oozing out of him when he asked Valen to brawl. For some reason, it had been so obvious that Valen didn't have a reason to turn the request down. Now standing in the park with a small audience that had built up when one of Danny's little shadows went spreading the word off to the side, Valen couldn't help but ask, "What the hell are you on?" To Danny, who was barefoot, in simple clothing, sans his usual hat and the coat, a few feet away from him. He seemed juiced up, the small telltale signs of a glow in his eyes already starting up. Danny smiled, and Villain got another glimpse of some sharper teeth. "Just excited. It's been a while. I miss brawls," he said so simply, and with no hesitation that Villain laughed. He had to admit to himself he missed fights too, and this one was sure to be good because there was no danger. He felt at ease even with people watching, much like his time back fighting crocodiles and alligators in the ring, goons or bats underground. Villain didn't feel the need to look behind his back for something coming his way. All there was a scrawny chit with a sharp smile and bright eyes in front of him. "Let's see if you're better at this than you're at cards." The fight began with Danny's laughter. Jimmy sat next to Eric, watching the ongoing match and failing at getting Eric to share his gummy worms. Big steps sounded behind him, coming closer and closer until a shadow fell across them. "Ah, big guy, come to see the fight?" Jimmy asked. Grundy grunted before sitting down behind them, his shadow more than welcome. Danny suddenly called out to him in excitement, with a smile before getting tackled, which only made him laugh. When Jimmy looked up, he could see that Grunty had what looked like a smile. "He really was in the mood for a fight, huh?" Tuck said, sitting next to Eric on his other side, and Paddy and a few others who had stopped to watch. Paddy leaned down and ruffled Tuck's hair. "Bright Eyes there is like me, and that bastard Aiden, always down for a good tussle. Just bonding, you know." "Don't think they will get hurt?" someone asked. "Nah, Danny's a meta, ain't he? And Mr. Jones there's having fun too. Something I never thought I'd be saying in Gotham." The other nodded in agreement. It wasn't exactly a surprise that Danny was a meta or just had abilities. There were a lot of folks like that now. It didn't bother them much, though it was surprising seeing as most metas kept it usually hidden, especially in Gotham, except Danny wasn't from around here and was unapologetically himself. For some reason it felt the tiniest bit of reassuring. They all knew about Bat's rule, about metas, but it was no secret that it was probably for their protection instead. After all, Signal was there, and Batman had saved plenty of metas in the past too. Snap's sister was one of them, and no one questioned what Snap said. So with ease they focused on the fight, trying to guess the next move that was about to be made by two people who rushed at each other, feet digging into the dirt, their teeth bared in identical smiles. "For the love of God, what did you do with my jacket?" Roy asked for the 100th time as he tried to make his way into Jason's room to find his stolen clothes. "I don't know what you're talking about," Jason replied, while efficiently keeping Roy from even getting past the doorway of his room. "Dude, Leon gave me that jacket." "Liar." Jason elbowed him in the ribs lightly, pushing him back into the hallway. "I know for a fact that you stole it from Dick 2 years ago." "How the hell do you know that?" Roy rasped out, clutching at his ribs. "Dick wouldn't shut up about it for 2 months, and one of my books got a stain on it because of it." Roy paused at Jason's tone and looked up. What he saw made him step back. "Say, Jaybird, you're not angry at me about that, are you?" He took another step back when Jason took a step forward. "Nah," Jason said, nonchalant, but Roy could swear his eyes said otherwise. He made a run for it. Of course, there was no point. Roy was sure that it was just the home advantage that had him almost suffocated with one of what had to be Alfred's pillows on Jason's couch. That was not my fault," Roy said, trying not to push away an embroidered flower digging into his face, except Jason had a good grip on his neck by pushing him down. "Technically, it is," Jason replied before slightly squeezing Roy's neck. "And it was a first edition. Shit." Roy's saving grace was the sound of the door opening, and the hand pushing him down paused. "Linwing, I heard you weren't feeling well, and I brought—" Dick froze when he walked into the living room. There was a takeout bag from a good Thai place in his hand. Am I interrupting something? No, Roy said from his partially squished position. He knew Jason would truly kill him if he messed up his pillows. Yes, Jason said, not moving from his spot on top of Roy on the couch. They all stared at each other before finally Dick raised the takeout bag. I have food! Did you get the mango sticky rice? Jason asked. Obviously. Finally, Jason's grip on Roy backed off completely, and Roy could get up. Meanwhile, Jason was already in the kitchen with the bags, grabbing plates. It was amusing how he could tell that Jay grabbed a certain themed plate set before two other plain ones. When he turned to actually say hi to Dick, he saw them staring at him. Dick's eyebrows slightly raised in a way that made Roy want to slap away. Dude, stop looking at me like that, Roy said, but Dick just shrugged his shoulders with a smile instead. Roy still wanted to slap him. Then Dick went ahead to bother Jason while setting up the table in the usual manner. They ended up eating the table with their corresponding dishes, unless someone wanted a new scar. So yeah, that happened with Duke, but he doesn't seem to be bothered by it. Though, I think he might be looking for a pet. Saw him looking at fish the other day, Dick said. Anyways, how things been? Any good stories? While Jason took another bite, Roy smiled and waved the spoon around. Jay here had been feeling the effects of those underground songbirds. Got him in his feels, huh? Anya, Jaybird. Shut up and eat your food. Roy smiled. Yes, Mom. Jason growled and flicked rice at Roy, who unfortunately dodged. Not your mom, fucking hooligan. Well, Roy leaned forward and waved around a spoon towards Jason. You obviously think you have some right to my clothes, taking the jacket, but give it back and I will call you anything else you want, he smiled. I liked all the pockets it had. I could hide things in them. Jay glared, but before he could reply, Dick spoke. Pockets? Was it the blue one with the extra secret pockets? 'Cause, dude, I really like that jacket, Dick said solemnly. Well, Roy pointed at Jason, has it, so ask him for it, since he won't give it back to me. Jason took a bite of his sticky rice. It shrunk. It's mine! Dick cut in. Technically it's mine. Oh, for the love of God! A yelling match proceeded and escalated until there were several knocks from Jason's neighbors, and it returned to eating the food with only a few extra bruises. Though when Roy was about to fall asleep in his third serving of rice, Jason particularly dragged him to sleep on his bed. But the couch, Roy mumbled. Jason shoved Roy onto the mattress and threw a pillow at him. Me and Dick are gonna use it. And I don't need your foot in my face. You move too damn much in your sleep. Fuck you, you wish, Jason said, before he walked out and let himself sink into the couch. How is he? Dick asked, flicking through the TV channels. In denial. Dick laughed before finally choosing a channel of a home renovation in the country. Of course, Jason's favorite part of the house was the mini library the eccentric man decided to have. They watched a few more episodes until the channel shifted to something else they were barely paying attention to. Instead, at some point, Dick just started to watch Jason. A part of him always went back to checking that Jason was breathing and actually there. He had too many moments where he thought otherwise. Jason had a little quirk to his mouth, one that he had even years later, whenever he was deep in thought. You really okay, Jay? It was always a risk to ask any of the families, seeing as each of them were not exactly the best at accepting concern, taking offense to any question of it. Jason in particular was touchy with that question, especially in the beginning of being back, but Dick had to be sure. It said a lot of how much had gone on when Jason didn't even scroll at the question. Instead, He just leaned his head back on the couch with his eyes closed for a moment. Been thinking about Mom. They couldn't remember when Jason last talked about Catherine. It's weird, Jason commented. Halloween isn't a thing we celebrated because Billy's was a fucker. It was quiet around this time for us. And February was where she died. But I don't know. The other day it just felt. He turned his head and looked at Dick. I've been thinking about her hugs and shit, Dick. You know, she used to run her fingers through my hair, trying to fix some of the curls I had, even if they weren't that bad. I didn't say nothing, though. Felt nice. Haven't thought about that in a while, and it's kind of fucking me up. Even though Jason was as tall or even taller than him, they couldn't help but see the echo of the little boy that Bruce one day brought home with curly hair. Dick had made a lot of mistakes. Some of them he regretted with everything he had. Maybe he hadn't always been the best brother, except in this moment it was the most natural thing to pull Jason into a hug, tugging his head beneath his. Dick took a deep breath, and when he let it out, it was shaky, and squeezed Jason tight. I miss my mom too, he whispered. Jason's arms wound themselves around him and tightened. The two of them weren't sure how long they stayed holding each other. It was different from the hugs from their mothers when they were small, but there were small similarities that they would find. It was a sad, comforting thing. They didn't say anything else as they eventually let go and let the channel change to the next program of cold cases. Eventually, the drinks were brought out as they made bets about who was the killer or how many mistakes the detective made during the episode. Their only mistake was making the drunk decision to sleep in Jason's bed. The bed was not built for three fit bodies to sleep in it, and they were paying for it with the bruises of Roy's elbows and kicks he still had a habit of giving occasionally. It was a rough morning, and seeing a small figure looking down at them from the side of the bed with a sneer didn't help either. Pathetic, Damien said far too loudly for all three of them. They have bonded, Corey said from her spot floating above the bed. Even more pathetic, Damien retorted. Be quiet, gremlin. I'm hungover, Roy ground from his spot. Jason flared out a hand in an attempt to smack him. The resounding groan was a sign of his success. You didn't even drink. Don't care, Roy replied, trying to hide his face in a pillow or possibly Dick's arm. Hungover in spirit. Corey floated over, down to Roy, and smiled as her hair brushed the tips of his nose, making his face scrunch up. Oh, did you have one of my drinks? From the XXX sector? Would you like another bottle? I picked up on my travels. They use a camel-like creature to transport it as it aged. Please no, Dick whined, while Damien scowled and poked Dick in a spot that made him flail out of bed. Richard, have you forgotten your promise to take me to the new exhibit? Asked, as he stared disdainfully at his eldest brother on the floor. At the question, Dick suddenly went silent before jumping up from the floor. No, of course not. I just need to get changed and make a phone call. Don't worry. He scanned the floor for his phone. Corey, can you call me, please? She smiled. But you're right here, my love. Though I am more than happy to say your name. Damien scowled at Roy's snickering and Dick's flush. Cease this foolishness and get ready. Drake cannot take me since he has insisted on going to the skate park all of this week. But even he remembers your promise to me. Dick winces. Fine. Just seriously, someone call my phone. He even went as far as pushing Roy on top of Jason to see if it was under the bed. It wasn't. Jason grunted at the new weight, while Roy clung to his new pillow like an octopus. Tuff. Jason flipped him the bird. Corey took a photo. A minute later, Dick ran into the room with his phone in his hand, and Damien didn't even let him get a word out before he grabbed Corey's sleeve and began to walk out of the room and apartment. Corey floated along the way with a soft smile. Dick followed close behind them, asking for Damien to let her go. It was only quiet for 10 minutes before the phone on the nightstand rang, and Roy flared out his hand to pick it up. "Who is this, and why are you calling so early?" A voice answered. "It's 11:42 in the morning." "Oh, hey, Stan. Give me a second. I will hand you to Hood." He blindly held the phone in Jason's direction. "It's for you." With his eyes still closed, Jason took the phone, mumbling something, then handed it back to Roy, who took it and put it back on the nightstand. Jason was too tired to deal with anything, considering that he had a bad feeling that Dick somehow brought a drink from Corey's stash. That, and he always felt wrung out after getting into sentimental shit. He grabbed Roy to move him into a better position, where there wasn't an elbow digging into his ribs, and where his neck didn't feel like it would snap at any second. Roy went easily with the movement, and somehow his hands ended up in Jason's hair. He mumbled sleepily while his fingers began moving, and Jason deemed it not worth saying anything else. There was a silent agreement between the two of them to just not get up today.